The 10-minute talent rant is live. I'm James Hornick, brought to you by Jeff Smith, and we are on the clock. The 10-minute talent rant is our ongoing series where we break down things that are broken in the talent acquisition and hiring space, maybe even pitch a solution or two. Before we dig in, all of our content can be found on talentinsights.hirewell.com. This week's topic should be a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
No one understands recruiting but recruiters, Volume 1. We don't like it's kind of like when you don't know there's a sequel coming, but we know there's a sequel coming to this one. So
yeah, spoiler alert, there might not be a lot of takeaways on this one.
but I think there are.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to say that you don't have to have the title of recruiter to be a good recruiter. And we want to preface that it's kind of a joke that when we say no one understands what we do, but there are a lot of good, I've met a lot of CEOs, a lot of CTOs that are great recruiters. But then we've also met a lot of people who think they know a lot about recruiting because they're not in the role, and really they just make everything worse in terms of hiring. So, and that's kind of something we want to talk about today, some commonly seen mistakes people make. And this isn't even unique to recruiting. I know it's kind of a joke in the marketing space as well too. There's a lot of marketers that say well, every CEO thinks they know about marketing, except the ones who, especially the ones who don't. I think there's just people have a skewed sense of things that seem conceptually easy to understand, but there's a lot more particulars involved. And we want to illustrate some of the worst case scenarios where things go wrong. I mean, the funny example I heard someone say is can you imagine a recruiter telling an engineering manager that their design sucks and it doesn't work? Yet engineering managers have no problem telling a recruiter that hey, find me more candidates after they already sent them the 3 best ones, So
right.
We'll kind of get into it here.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that we had a laundry list, but we condensed it down to the 7 that I think are the most tangible. I think just think about things when we kind of are going through this, the normal stuff happens. You get a ton of turn downs. You have a process that's either too long or in some small cases too short. Candidates just don't seem to be interested in your roles, either at the front or back end of the funnel. What's happening there? Let's diagnose that. And just overarchingly, shit is not working at all, right? You're frustrated with your recruiting team. You don't understand what's going on. Let's get into these 7 things. Hit us with number 1, James.
All right. Number 1 may actually be 2, but it's the opposite. So putting all your eggs in one basket, then going back to square one, versus window shopping and complete indecisiveness, which has the same net result. So, I mean, the first I've seen a million times, a hiring manager will fall in love with this one candidate and all in, let's push them through. There's other people you could be talking to. Let's hold off on those. Let's see what happens with this.
They're
first.
Totally going to accept.
Yeah, they're going to accept. This is great. You keep another interview. This is going to work out. Let's get the offer out there. Start to get some, you get a little worried when they don't accept on the spot, and then they're oh, I need some time to decide. And then it doesn't work. And then you wasted 2, 3, 4 weeks. Who knows it was. And you're back to square one. Meanwhile, all those other candidates that weren't interested, now they're not, because they've been talking other places and they thought you weren't that into them because you weren't. And you're truly back to square one.
Yep.
The flip side of that is, complete window shopping. So we actually had someone on our team. So this is a real world one. This is before she came to Hirewell, who went through 6 conversations with a company. Six conversations. They were perfect for the role. Everything is this is going to work out. Then finally, at the very end, they said their internal recruiter told her that, we actually need someone with more specific recruiting experience. Which you're okay, it took you 6 interviews to figure out I'm not a fit, but it gets better. They actually then reached out about a month later and made her an offer.
The old C-suite confirming that you're a great fit, only to find out you're not a great fit, but then you are a good fit.
Yeah. So just your inability to make a decision based on whatever. So don't do either of those. Next one.
Yeah. We see this a lot. There's this urgency, right? Followed immediately by a complete slow play. And then also tangentially, interesting levels of gatekeeping from your hiring managers. When I say hiring managers as a recruiter. So think of it this way. If you're asking your sources or recruiters, to let you review profiles before they are getting screened, like totally okay. I advocate for that. Just make sure that it's structured in a way that it feels helpful and not judgmental. It's really important that they still feel like you're not kind of looking over their shoulder. Make sure that you're clarifying that it's not a gatekeeping exercise. Like, if you're doing that though, don't take your sweet ass time, please. Mm-hmm. Like, get through the resumes in 24, 48 hours. Like, make sure that your sourcers and recruiters know who you're supposed to talk to, who they're supposed to talk to. Like, you're just compounding the problem if you take your time at the front end of that funnel. Your recruiter is going to move on to other stuff. Then you're going to inevitably come back and say, like, what's going on here? And you stay on that hamster wheel. The other piece to this is, and we see it a lot, is, oh my God, everything's on fire. Yeah, I need 17 roles filled yesterday. The recruiter runs out to market, gets you 8 to 10 qualified applicants,
cancels everything else they're doing in the meantime. So anyone else who needs to hire, like, everything's on the wayside because this is the most important thing. And then what happens? You're
screaming radio silence.
Yeah.
Nothing on the back end.
Got you what you're looking for, and then nothing.
Yeah. What's worse is almost invariably 3 to 4 weeks after that entire exercise, we will get the email that says, hey, I'd love to interview Sally, John, and Paul. Are they still available? And our response is no, they're 100% not available. And even if they were, they have no interest in speaking with us again. So yeah. What's number 3, James?
All right. Time zones. Let's talk about time zones for a second. So this is interesting because this is not something I ever thought would be like a top level vetting point, but it is nowadays. Like, time zones is like a critical thing. Everyone's remote, I think that, we see people that have a bias towards, like, they want East Coast or they want West Coast time. And the thing is, I get it, because your team's based there and you need, especially, you need someone who can kind of work those hours. And it's important from an employee engagement standpoint, because last thing you want to do is have someone on the East Coast working West Coast hours or vice versa. And that messes up their work-life balance and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I get it. But here's the thing. If you're looking at it from a sheer talent availability standpoint to get the largest pool available, there are skill sets where no one's going to argue it doesn't make sense to have your customer success or your tech support spread across different time zones, right? It just, if you've got clients in different areas, you got internal people you're supporting, you want people working those different areas. But once you take it like a step further and you just think about it from a business standpoint, do you really need everyone working the exact 8-hour block? 9-hour block, 10-hour block, whatever it is. Like, it just seems to me that if you can get people on board for 4 to 5 hours of the day at the same time, it's, from a process standpoint, it's really not that hard to be able to structure things where you got people more geographically dispersed across the 4 time zones in the US.
Yeah. Like, it's the old adage, right? How do you figure out if things are, if the work is happening? And the answer is, well, is the work getting done?
Yeah. It's not like I should hope you're not on 8 hours of Zoom calls at the exact same time all day, So, but anyways, I digress. It's just a talent availability thing. So,
yeah. Well, and a strategic business decision on what roles make sense to do that. Anyway, number 4, easy one, packaging 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 12 jobs into one. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. And that's not to say, again, empathizing with, like, our entrepreneur clients, like startups, Series A, like, I get it. Like, money is tight. You've got to make really smart decisions with your payroll. Bucketing things like SEM and ads, cool. Those are in the same realm, right? Mm-hmm. And for the right person, the right opportunity, that makes sense. Let's not bucket accounting and business development. Let's not, completely different skill sets. You're not going to have any availability from a candidate perspective. And it just sounds like you're being cheap, to be quite honest.
Yeah. All right. So another one, searching for the wrong damn thing all along. So there's been times where we've seen people, I think this might happen a little more often in, like, more consultative or agency environments, but it could happen anywhere where there's a long interview process. Let's say it's for, like, a product manager, or something like that. and they need to meet with a bunch of different people. And I mentioned kind of consultancies, maybe they have to meet with the end client or something like that and whatnot. And then after this long process, that final checkbox, you know what I mean? Or maybe it's even with the CEO, maybe it's internally, you know what I mean? And they realize, you know what, this is actually the wrong skill. We don't need a product manager, we need a project manager. And after you've already kind of told the candidate you think this might actually work out, and like things are all looking good to go, you realize you're kind of back to square one. And we kind of said before, plot twist, all this time you spent searching for the wrong job is time you weren't spent searching for other things you actually need.
Yeah, there's nothing a recruiter loves more than double work. Yeah, why not? All right, number 6, employee prestige, RIP, dead.
Yeah,
nobody cares. Nobody cares. If you are banking, the amount of times that we have heard, well, the candidate, you know, I get it, I hear you, the candidate market is XYZ, the comp is this, but the right person's going to want to work for us. You know, our retort has become, you know what doesn't pay the bills? 5-star Glassdoor reviews.
I like the
put monetary value to that.
The paid for a top 10 best place to work list also doesn't pay for your rent, but
yeah, I get over yourselves. I shout out to our boy Mitch Sullivan. He had a great piece on this. You know, this whole adage that companies are doing the job seeker population some sort of favor for having an opening has got to go by the wayside.
Yeah. Number 7, last one we'll go on here. Favoring inbound versus outbound. The correct answer is neither. It should be neither. It's funny. We've seen scenarios on both sides where I was more familiar with the outbound one, but we've actually seen some scenarios where people are favoring more inbound candidates because they have a perception that they're more excited because they're more actively looking. They found our site and they're really interested in our job specifically, so they must be the better candidate. Versus if someone's passive because, you know, meaning they aren't actively looking, they don't have the resume together, we had to hunt them down, they must not be as into it. And I've seen it kind of go both ways. It's just odd to me, especially like if you're trying to hire salespeople, you know what I mean? You should want people that are good at outbound and hunting people down. It's kind of part of the job.
It's
but
so counterintuitive, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so you have to realize that like great recruiting is usually an effort between kind of both inbound and outbound. I could go on a separate tangent, maybe separate show about why you want to have a good brand that makes it easier when you do the outbound recruiting, they're more likely to get back to you. But realize that there shouldn't be a bias either way between like, you know, candidates we reach out to and headhunting versus people who sought after and found us. It really comes down to like who's the best talent. So, and
to your point, the healthy balance is a mix of both.
Yeah. All right. We are short on clock. That's a wrap for this week. Thanks for tuning in to the 13.5-minute talent rant, part of the Talent Insights series, which is always available for replay on the talentinsights.hirewall.com, as well as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. Jeff, thanks as always. Everyone out there, we'll see you soon.